The apex predator you've been watching for 30 years is desperately hiding a simple, shattering truth. Disney lied to us all. Many think he was the master of the pride, but he was actually the greatest prisoner in the entire savannah. Look closely at the forensic evidence, the skeletal structure, the sophisticated posture, the 5,000-year-old biological anomaly that Mufasa couldn't see. We'll get to that later. He wasn't a lion. He was a god. Scar was eternally bound by a terrifying ironclad contract, a 5,000-year-old secret that controlled his life, his death, and the very ground he walked on. His entire story isn't a simple Shakespearean tragedy. It's a frantic, doomed struggle to postpone the inevitable payment to the cosmic energies. Every predator pursues a kingdom, but for Scar, the Pride Lands were a living, constant reminder of the powers he left behind. The true horror of Scar's origin isn't found in a movie. It's buried in the 1994 series, 6 New Adventures. Before the Scar, there was a prince named Taka. In Swahili, the name is a cruel prophecy. It means want, or even worse, waste. Imagine the psychological weight of a child being branded as trash by his own parents, while his brother, Mufasa, was hailed as king. The villain we know wasn't born. He was manufactured by a name that told him he was nothing. But the tragedy goes even deeper. In the later lore of the Lion God, we're given a different name, Askari. He was the designated leader of the Lion God, a lineage of power second only to the king himself. Askari was groomed to be the ultimate protector, a force of nature, and therefore the most dangerous creature in the Pride Lands. In his youth, Scar possessed the roar of the elders, a voice-based power that allowed him to weaponize the kings of the past. The lie of Mufasa's death begins with the truth of the Pride Lands' ancient power. This hidden history, detailed in the expanded canon of the Lion Guard series, reveals the existence of a force known as the Roar of the Elders. This power is not merely a loud sound, it is a conduit to a cosmic law. When wielded, it allows the user to call upon the combined spiritual energy of every king of the past, a deafening, cataclysmic storm of ancestors. This roar can shatter stone, part the clouds, and vaporize mountains. It is the single most powerful, non-physical force in this entire world, and it was bestowed upon Scar. While the original movie conveniently erased this lore, it always implied this spiritual connection. Think of the great kings of the past, Mufasa's ability to manipulate the sky, and his voice thundering from the heavens in the climax. These are not random moments. They are the echoes of the divine power that governs the Pride Lands. Scar's roar was this power, channeled and focused for a specific purpose. Yet, this forbidden magic came with one absolute and terrifying rule, the ultimate spiritual check and balance for the entire kingdom. The roar of the elders can never be used for evil. It is an instrument of preservation only. To turn this power, the spirits of your own ancestors, against your kin, or to use it for selfish gain, is to commit the single greatest sin against the Pride Lands. And the punishment is not banishment or imprisonment. It is instant, cosmic retribution. The problem with holding a cosmic power is that one's ambition inevitably grows to match it. Askari saw the limitless potential in the roar of the elders, not as a tool for protecting the circle of life, but as the ultimate tool for ruling it. His original sin wasn't jealousy. It was the intoxicating desire to use the spirits of the past to install himself as the ultimate authority. He demanded his Lion Guard stand with him to overthrow his brother, Mufasa, and seize the Pride Lands. This was the moment of ultimate betrayal. His Lion Guard knowing the sacred law of the roar, immediately vetoed their leader. They had sworn an oath to the elders to protect the balance, and an attack on the king, no matter who commanded it, was a direct violation. This act of loyalty to the law was the spark. Askari was faced with a choice: relinquish his ambition or destroy the only force capable of standing against him. In a fit of pure, corrupted rage, the single most wicked impulse in the Pride Lands, Askari turned the power of the ancestors upon his own team. This was the cardinal sin. He used the sacred roar of the elders to commit mass murder against his sworn companions. The retribution was immediate and terrifying. The elders are not passive, and their sacred law cannot be broken. The power, having been used for evil, instantly turned against its master. The combined spiritual force of 1,000 dead kings did not simply vanish. It exploded, stripping Askari of his gift in a physical act of celestial violence. It was this blast that destroyed his ability to wield power. To understand the weight of Skar's power, we have to look toward the ancient shadows of Irish mythology, specifically the Dagda. He was a titan who possessed a harp that could bend the seasons and command the very emotions of men. This is the true nature of the roar of the elders. It isn't just a sound, it's a cosmic force that summons the spirits of the past to physically overwrite the present. When Skar lost the roar, it was a total stripping of his divine right. Just as the Dagda would be nothing without his harp, Skar became a hollow king, severed from the natural order he was born to protect. By comparing Skar's fall to the Dagda losing his sacred harp, we see that Skar wasn't just a villain, he was a god who was cast down. The Dagda is quite fascinating, and his frequency is too powerful to contain in a side note. He is, after all, the leader of the Tuatha Dé Danann, who became the blueprint for the Sidhe themselves. Drop a Dagda in the comments if you'd like a deep dive into the father of the fairy mounds. But the most chilling parallel lies in the ancient East. In Buddhist tradition, there is a concept known as the Simhanada, or the lion's roar. It is a metaphor for a fearless truth so powerful that it silences every other voice in existence. In martial arts folklore, this becomes the kiai, a focused spiritual shout capable of physically throwing back an opponent. This is exactly like the superpower Skar was entrusted with. He turned a tool of enlightenment into a weapon of destruction, silencing the very voices he was meant to lead. Finally, we find the most visceral parallel in the frozen echoes of Norse folklore. Long before modern media reimagined it, there was the concept of Galdr, incantations sung with such high-pitched spiritual focus that they could literally rewrite fate. This is the word of power. It's the ancient voice or dragon shout of the North. In the Pride Lands, the roar of the elders is that exact same cosmic selection. It signifies that the user isn't just a king by blood, but a king chosen by the universe itself. When Skar turned that voice against his own kind, he severed his connection to fate. He became a waste, not because of his name, but because he silenced the very cosmic harmony he was born to sing. While some versions of the tale focus on a spiritual explosion, other accounts suggest a more calculated and perhaps more tragic physical beginning. In the Lion Guard's version of events, while patrolling the jagged borders of the kingdom, Askari was lured into a masterfully laid trap. A nomadic rival, sensing the growing darkness in the prince's heart, promised him a power that would dwarf even the roar. But among the rocks lay a hidden assassin, a cobra. The snake struck with surgical precision, its fangs carving a deep, physical furrow across Askari's eye. This was no ordinary strike. The venom was a poison of the soul, a supernatural toxin designed to fester within the mind, slowly turning a noble protector into a cruel and bitter shadow of a king. Yet, the final transformation wasn't caused by the venom, but by a brother's coldness. When Askari returned to the heart of the Pride Lands, seeking a leader's compassion, he was met with a mockery that cut deeper than any fang. Mufasa looked upon his brother's wound and rebranded him Scar, a cruel joke that effectively severed Askari's last tie to his family and set the gears of the great betrayal in motion. The existence of Scar's true power is not just supported by the expanded canon. It is mandated by the story's own foundational source material, Shakespeare's Hamlet. The most important supernatural element in Hamlet is the ghost of King Hamlet. The play literally begins with the king's spirit appearing to his son to reveal the murder and demand vengeance. In Hamlet, the ghost is the source of all truth and the catalyst for the conflict. In The Lion King, the ghost is the great kings of the past, specifically Mufasa's spirit, who appears to Simba in the clouds. The Pride Lands, by its very Shakespearean design, is a world governed by spectral ancestors and spiritual law. If the heroic king has access to this spiritual plane to deliver guidance, then it is perfectly logical and, indeed, narratively required that the villain, Scar, would have once been able to weaponize that same ancestral power. The Roar of the Elders is simply the name given to the Pride Land's ultimate spiritual weapon. The Hamlet influence confirms that the film is not just a story about lions. It's a tragedy about celestial law and a sacred bloodline. Disney didn't just simplify a plot point. They removed a piece of a fully realized mythological structure to make the film less dark and complex. If the story of Askari and the Roar of the Elders is the mythological truth, then the moment we all saw in theaters, the tragic, simple scene of Mufasa being pushed, is the greatest canonical cover-up in Disney history. Why did Disney erase the magic and create a simpler narrative of sibling jealousy? The original film presents a drama of Shakespearean envy. A brother kills his kingly sibling to steal the throne. This story is relatable, tragic, and effective. But the real reason Scar was an antagonist, the story of the Lion Guard and the Roar, was strategically gutted from the final film because it made the narrative too intense, too supernatural, and too dark for a family film. The original story becomes too terrifying. An accidental fall and stampede is a tragic sequence that audiences can process. A creature who uses the spiritual force of his ancestors to commit a triple homicide is cursed for it and then continues. His rampage is a villain who crosses a line into genuine cosmic horror. Disney needed a simple villain, not a demon-marked exile. The entire concept of the Roar of the Elders and its spiritual rules would have required significant exposition, fundamentally altering the pacing and tone of the original film. It was infinitely easier to swap a complex mythological backstory for the simplicity of pure, raw envy. This deleted canonical story fundamentally changes how we view the final confrontation. Mufasa's death is not the story of Scar succeeding as a supervillain, but of him acting as a desperate, fallen being with nothing left. The climax of the film is not about Scar using superior power. It's about a crippled creature using brute, non-magical force. Scar had already lost his divine right to rule and his greatest weapon when he murdered his lion guard. He pushed Mufasa off that cliff because his forbidden magic was gone. He was powerless to weaponize the kings of the past, the source of his mark and his humiliation. He was left with nothing but his raw cunning and the primal satisfaction of a physical act of murder. The true tragedy of Mufasa's death is that it wasn't the final, grand act of a powerful sorcerer, but the desperate, pathetic crime of a king who had already lost his soul. This pattern of biological anomalies doesn't end in the Pride Lands. We found a similar fracture in the story of a certain fairy that proves Disney has been covering up these god frequencies for decades. If you're ready for the next level of our investigation, check out the dark truth behind Maleficent right now. Thanks for watching.